back, guys! Guess who's back? Yeah, I know I keep saying that and I keep disappearing. So, obviously, look, I've been doing a lot of in-person interviewing and road pilling, stuff like that. But also, I've missed this. I've missed doing the videos and stuff like that. And I've been meaning to come back for a couple of weeks. And then I heard Tom had a video coming out today. And I'm like, what better day to do it than to have Tom back? So, yeah, I'm a big Tom fan. I have all of his autographed albums except the last two, I think it is, I don't have. And they just sold out before I've got a chance to buy them. But I'm a big Tom fan. I love his music. Probably, I would say the favourite song. If I had to say one, there's been a few good ones. The last one was really, really good. End of the World. But the other one, apart from that, was the one where he's on the subway train. And it's sort of like the Jekyll and Hyde song. I really like that one too, actually. But I can't think at the moment. I've been coding for the past 4 hours or 8 hours. I've gone blank. But we have a new Tom video. Now, guys, obviously, if you're new to the channel and you're wondering, we are a political and news correspondent sort of channel. We break down politics, cultural news, stuff like that. We're not going to focus so much on the rhymes and the rhythm here. We are going to focus on the meaning, the message, and what he's actually talking about. And we will also go through and add sort of backup evidence and stuff for some of the stuff that he talks about. Mainly because people like to call him a conspiracy theorist. But the fact of the matter is, a lot of the Tom stuff that he's singing about isn't actually conspiracy theory. It's just the mainstream media narrative doesn't cover it, so a lot of people don't know. So we're going to approach this from a news and politics point of view, and we're going to break down what he's talking about. If you want my stance on things, I generally am anti-authoritarian. I'm a bit of a centrist. I would lean probably more right than left in news at the moment, and news and politics at the moment. But that's just because of the fact that I don't like how the left is going about things. But that said, if it was between a choice between Trump or Kennedy Jr., I really couldn't pick. I really couldn't. Probably still Trump. But like I say, just to give you an idea of where I sit, I love Kennedy. I loved his dad. I studied his dad when I was at school. But I also like the Trumps and the mega party and stuff like that. But let's go through, break this down. Like I say, we are going to approach this from a pure scientific political point of view. So let's just jump straight into it. I haven't seen this video. I have no idea what he's talking about. I do like the fact that the first scene I am seeing is the White House full of money with a song called Dirty Money. I really think this is going to be an interesting clip. Let's
They're angry that they'll never shut me up. I'm making more noise. Turn me up or turn me down, it's your choice. Black lives only matter when they got a corpse to exploit.
Okay, so, oh boy, we're straight into it. So let's do it again.
They're angry that they'll never shut me up. I'm making more noise.
They're angry they'll never shut me up. I'm making more noise. The amount of censorship that he is talking about is insane. Even for us, even for this channel. This channel, when it was in its prime, and before the censorship, used to get anywhere from 10 to 100,000 views per video. And then right up until the point before I went on holidays, we're flat out getting 100 views. That's the amount of censorship that's currently on at the moment. That's what he's talking about there. He's talking about the YouTube suppression. If you want to talk about the Twitter files, you literally had members of the government who were sending links and, at the very least, sending information or sending tweets to Twitter to check into. That is the government censoring people that they don't like. And if you ever want to check any of that out, go and check out Matt Taibbi, who is a leftist, by the way. Go check out Matt Taibbi and talking about the Twitter files, because some of the stuff that's in there is absolutely crazy. But let's keep going.
Turn me up or turn me down, it's your choice. Black lives only.
turn me up or turn me down, it's your choice. He's talking about people having the right to choose. You know, would it be whether it be vaccines, abortion, whatever it may be. Everybody should have the right to choose.
Matter when they got a corpse to exploit, because the media.
Black lives matter only matter when they've got a corpse to exploit, I think he said. He's talking about the fact that the Democratic Party hammers identity politics. Constantly talking about identity politics and everything, you know, but they only care about black people. I'm doing air quotes here. Black people when it comes to them having someone to exploit. We've had Biden in the White House for 3 years and they haven't done shit for the black community. But you'll start hearing lately about how much they care about the black people. They haven't done anything for 3 years. But now, once there's an election coming up, now all of a sudden they'll start talking about how Black Lives Matter and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah.
Because the media made millions off the protests for George Floyd. That's called...
The amount of money the media made from George Floyd is ridiculous. And not only them, but also Black Lives Matter too. The way the media works is that they get paid for running advertiser space. The news can turn around, like, for example, Tucker, before he wasn't fired, he was put on holidays. It's the closest thing you can get to being fired. Long-term holidays, like as in, like, for the next year holidays. Probably another video. What they do is they turn around and they'll say to advertisers, hey, you want to advertise on our channel? That's fine, that's great. Yep, we'd love to have you. We get 3 million views a night. So we're going to charge you $3,000 in that, or $30,000 in that. Where if they only get 1 million views, they might charge $10,000 in that, or $1,000 in that. So the more views they get, the more money they can charge for their advertisers. So this is why you get news going through and being over-centralized when it comes to centralization. I'm mispronouncing the word. But, you know, like they're deliberately making everything more hyperbolic. More, you know, like it's, oh my God, it's the end of the world. Oh my God, it's the end of democracy. You know, like it's all this hyperbolic statements. It's because it causes people to watch. Because people, oh my God, what do you mean it's the end of my democracy? I've got to walk, I've got to find out. What are they talking about, right? And that's why they do it. It's because at the end of the day, they get more people watching so they can charge more for advertisers, make more money. When they were running the protests, when the protests for George Floyd and stuff were running, the media was covering it. And even when they're sitting there going on about how it's a mostly peaceful protest, whether you agree or disagree with that, the fact is that even though a lot of the conservatives were angry about the way they framed it, they would still link to the articles for New York Times or CNN or whatever. So they still got the ad revenue even from that. They could turn around and say, well, hey, we're getting $30 million or 30,000 views or 100,000 views or 300,000 views on our article on George Floyd. And that's what he's talking about. He's talking about the effects the media have on centralizing things and making money because of the fact that they've made it so they've hyperbolic with all these statements.
Ad revenue, they make cash selling you.
See,
all the crap in the ads what they broadcast news. Ooh, the network full of the network they broadcast news. Ooh, the network full of liars in the ads what they broadcast selling you. All the revenue for George Floyd, that's called ad revenue. They make cash selling you. All the crap in the ads what they broadcast news.
Exactly what I was just saying. They're talking about the ad revenue. And I haven't seen this clip. So we're on the same wavelength here. It's exactly what I was just saying. It's all about ad revenue. We've got 30 million people or 3 million people or 5 million people looking at this article. We can charge so much for this ad revenue. So there's a direct relation or a direct cause for the media to make this as hyperbolic as they possibly can. Even though it might not be in the best interest, even though it might be factually inaccurate, doesn't matter because they get to charge more for those ads, and that's what really matters to them. They're a profit. They're a company. Who would have thought?
News, ooh, the network network full of liars got investment capital and segments sponsored by Pfizer. And the freedom fighters, I feel like the left just plants them to infiltrate the right. It's extensive planning, then it happens overnight. It's impressive branding, make $1 million off of shirts that say let's go Brandon. It's a cat.
And he's talking about how the right here also benefits by things like, for example, let's go Brandon. Right? You know, obviously you have this chant that is very popular during the conservative movement. And how they make money off that too. You know, how many people are selling merchandise with Let's Go Brandon? How many people are selling hats with Let's Go Brandon? I'm not saying everybody that is doing it just to make money. Some people also do it because obviously it gets the thing out there, gets the slogan out there. People might be questioning why you're wearing a hat that says Let's Go Brandon. But let's face it, they also do make some money off it as well. I believe that's what he's talking about. Let's rewind.
It's impressive branding, make $1 million off of shirts that say let's go Brandon. It's a cash grab, everyone's a lab rat. Amazon made billions of dollars.
Yep, so it's a shirt that says let's go Brandon. That's what he's talking about. He's talking about conservatives there and how they market slogans and sayings and things as well that are very hyperbolic. Although I do like the let's go Brandon saying. Just saying.
From sanitizer and black mass, and that's that. Funny how the terrorists who attack always come from places that are oil rich and have gas. Democrats, they don't give a
damn. We're going to go there, are we? It's funny how the terrorists always come from countries that have oil. It's weird, that, isn't it? Let's move on. Obviously, there he's talking about like Iraq and all those sort of places. Like the Congo, for example. Civil war has been raging in the Congo for 20 years. Not many people care. Why? Well, there's no oil in the Congo, right? Yeah.
Democrats, they don't give a damn. What is this about? Our military trapped in the Middle East, can't get them out. Heroes are the ones who had the Constitution written down. Y'all.
Wow, I think I need to put subtitles on for some of these stuff. All right, let's put the subtitles on. All right.
Can't get them out. Heroes are the ones who.
Military trapped in the Middle East can't get them out. Well, they could, but they don't care.
Military trapped in the Middle East can't get them out. Yes, and that's that. Funny how the terrorists who attack.
Funny how the terrorists
always come from places that are oil.
Whoops.
Rich and have gas. Democrats, they don't give a damn. What is this about? Our military trapped in the Middle East can't get them out. Heroes are the ones who had the Constitution written down. Y'all aren't using.
So he's talking about the fact that he's talking about the 13 that were left behind by Biden. We can drop a tank in the Middle East, but we can't get 13 soldiers out of the Middle East. It's weird, that, isn't it? And as a person who has a military family, it is extremely disconcerting. At least I don't have American military, mine are Australian. But yes, my family, I have several members in my family who are ex-military. At the end of the day, it is extremely disconcerting the way that some of the soldiers are treated these days. But, yeah.
Down. Y'all aren't using hero while describing Kyle Rittenhouse. 1 cent, 2.
So he's talking about heroes who wrote the Constitution, who wrote the laws, who wrote the benefits, and who wrote the system for America. He's having a dig at their conservatives there about how they're talking about using Kyle Rittenhouse as a hero. I get his argument. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think anyone that defends themselves against 3 or 4 people who are attacking you, I think you could probably call them a hero. But I get his sentiment. He's talking about the fact that we're using the term hero to celebrate someone who took someone's life, while he's saying, well, no, a hero is actually someone who wrote the Constitution. I get his argument. I disagree with it. But, yeah, we'll see.
2 cents, 3 cents, 4. We get less and they get more. Buy and sold since we were born. They want money. We want dirty dollars. Fill their pockets while our coffins fill the ground. They make profits solving problems they create to keep us down.
They make profits solving problems that they created. We're going to go there. Big thing at the moment is the war in Russia, war in Ukraine. I am no fan of Putin. I'm not a fan of any dictator. But there is so much more to that people don't know about. Like, for example, the US military who funded the opposition party in 2016, who later became the leaders of Ukraine. Back in 2016, the politicians had not a pro-Russia, but a more of a friendly Russian stance. But the Americans wanted to put a pipeline through Ukraine and Russia. Into the Middle East. Germany, stuff like that. And Ukraine at the time turned around and said, no, we don't want to put the pipeline through Ukraine because it will upset our friends in Russia. We don't want to piss them off. We don't want to upset our friends. So America then went through and funded the opposition party who would agree to put the pipeline through Ukraine so that the Americans can go through and put their pipeline. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. Alright guys, I've tried to find the graphic that I had that would actually show this, but funny we're talking about censorship. You can't find it anymore. Since the Nord Stream pipeline was attacked, there seems to be a lot of missing articles. But basically what happens was America wanted to go through and put their pipeline into Europe. But the Russians also had a competing pipeline that wanted to go into Europe. And the Europeans were using a lot of the Russian pipeline because it was cheaper gas. So then Nord Stream blew up. And now all of a sudden the US is now exporting more gas to Europe than Russia is, surprisingly. But that's what it was all about. Back in 2014, Russia wanted to put a pipeline through Ukraine because obviously Ukraine is one of the major sectors it needs to go through, and the American government bankrolled the opposition party at the time, who then went through and stopped it or slowed it down or whatever it was. So it's all about gas, and that's what he's talking about here. They're using money to create problems so they can then solve the problems and all that sort of stuff. But let's keep going.
Dirty money. Dirty money. I don't want your dirty money. They might kill me for this song. It's all classified intelligence. Don't need to go to war to secretly be getting benefits. When Russia launches rockets, we condemn them, but there's evidence a U.S. politician owns the screws they're assembled with. Ain't no.
So, oh boy. The US owns the screws they're assembled with. He's talking about the fact that the military-industrial complex over in America supplies weapons all around the world. They mightn't directly sell them to Russia, although I think they actually do. But they mightn't directly sell them to Russia, but they supply them to other countries who then supplies them to Russia. Or you look at Ukraine. US is supplying all these weapons to Ukraine, but only 30% of them are actually getting there. The other 70% are ended up on the black market. I can show you actually. So, really? Hang on. All right, let's try this one. Report: 70% of Western weapons sent to Ukraine don't reach troops, so 30% are getting there. A report added to ongoing rumours of waste, corruption, and blackmail profiteering. The US has approved more than $54 billion, it's been a lot more since that now, $54 billion in the military aid to Ukraine since February, while Ukraine has committed nearly $3 billion in military aid alone. The EU has spent another $2.5 billion on arms for Kiev. An entire spectrum of the equipment, from rifles, grenades to anti-tank missiles and multiple rocket launcher systems, have left West's armories for Ukraine, with most entering the country through Poland. However, it rarely goes smooth, CBS revealed this week. All sorts of stuff go across the border, and then something happens, kind of like 30% reaches its destination. Yeah. We know where the other 70% is, they're just not reporting on it. Hamas says getting the weapons to the troops involved in navigating a complex network of power lords and blah 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 blah. Sure. Keep in mind this is obviously mainstream media too. Basically, from my understanding, what is happening is that a lot of the weapons are being sold on the black market. And it's actually Ukraine and stuff like that are actually doing it. Or maybe not in Ukraine in itself. Maybe if you want to be really, really charitable, the warlords are doing it. But to me, I think it's, from what I've heard, it's Ukraine. But yeah, 70% of the weapons getting there don't actually get there. And then obviously Tom's talking about the fact that the screws are assembled with. He's talking about the fact that the military-industrial complex sells all these weapons to places like Ukraine. They end up on the black market, and then the Russia buys them off the black market. Yeah. So yeah. Also, you got to remember too. Sometimes along the day and age, US would supply weapons to someone who might be not necessarily their allies, but would be to their friends, because they're in sort of agreement with my enemy's my enemy. So, like for example, Bin Laden was funded by the CIA back in the day. The reason they funded him was because they needed to get rid of the current president of, I think it was Iraq. I think it was. So to get rid of him, they funded Bin Laden and Al Qaeda. It's the same with like Syria and all that sort of stuff, right? Like your Syrian and all those sort of guys, they're Syrian freedom fighters. They're Afghanis. They're Al Qaeda. But when the US is saying about their freedom fighters in Syria, they're not saying they're Syrian troops. They're literally Taliban. That's who they're funding. But what they'll do is they'll fund the Taliban in Syria because they might be against Ukraine, or they might be against not Ukraine, sorry, Iraq, or it might be against Iran. So they'll fund them there. But then later down the track, the ones that they funded will then rise up and get to too much power, and then they'll want to topple them, so they'll fund someone else. So that the people that were fighting back then are now they're fighting against now, and it's a great big mess. That's what he's talking about here. Is he talking about the fact that the US makes a lot of these problems only to try and put them out later? So let's keep going.
War on drugs, it's economic. You make money off an inmate, every jail cell is profit. Our prisons are private.
So he's talking about all the prisons are private companies. Every prison, I believe, in the US is a private company. They're not government funded. They're all private. And every inmate is actually charged to the state by these private corporations. So every inmate in prison, they actually get paid for.
Owned illegal marijuana just mean kids smoking weed turn to dollars in their pockets. Let's be honest, domestic threats in comparison to nuclear powers who hate the West is embarrassing. Still we label truckers in the convoy as terrorists and confiscate the weapons we have no idea.
Hey, you mentioned the truckers in the convoy. Good on him. So yeah, obviously you get through a prison system. You get put into prison for smoking a joint. When you're around a bunch of other criminals, all of a sudden you start becoming more criminal-like, or learning more criminal behavior because you're around other people that are criminals. So then when you get out, you obviously, you can't get a job because you're in prison, regardless of what you might have been in there for. So then, obviously you turn to crime because, hey, guess what? You're in prison. I don't want to give you a job because you're in prison. They don't necessarily care why you're in there. They're just like, well, you're in prison, you can't get a job. Or it's very hard for you to get a job. So you turn to crime. And guess what? You go back to prison. So the prison that put you in there, or the system that put you in there to prison, made money off you going to prison for the pot, and then makes more money every time you get put in there for some sort of crime. So, if you're going to do pot, they get paid for that. And then if you get out and then you might have steal a car because you want some money, you would then get caught, you go to prison again, they get paid again. So every time you go to prison, they get paid. The prison company gets paid. Why do you think they put you in prison? It's not about a rehabilitation, because if it was, the prisons wouldn't make money.
Idea where it is, a pipeline leaks, price of gas goes higher, stock market crash. Where it is, a pipeline leaks into nuclear powers who hate the West is embarrassing. Still we label truckers, kids smoking weed turn to dollars in their pockets. Let's be honest, domestic threats in comparison to nuclear powers who hate the West is embarrassing.
He's talking about the fact that how the US has this really embarrassing rap when it comes to the amount of people who are military powers don't like them. And it's not the American people, it's the governments. But he's right. How many people here around the world have a favourable opinion of the American government? No one I speak to. No one I speak to. I speak to 20, 30 people a day. No one I know has a favourable opinion of the American prison system.
Still we label truckers in the convoy as terrorists and confiscate donations. We have no idea where it is. A pipeline.
Confiscate donations. He's talking about Canada and America, how they went through and confiscated the donations for the truckers to try and stop them from protesting.
Leaks, price of gas goes higher, stock market crash, everybody.
So the donations I'm talking about there, just to reiterate on that or expand on that, was Canada with its GoFundMe. GoFundMe actually went through and had to reimburse all of its donations in the end because of backlash, but they were going to just take the money and give it to a charity that they seemed fit. Even though people donated money for all of this convoy, and then it was only when it was brought up that was actually might be fraud and that they might actually be charged for it, and people started floating the idea that all of a sudden the GoFundMe turned around and said, well, hang on, we're just going to reimburse everybody the money, and then they went through and actually used, say, a Christian GoFundMe to go through and to fund the trucker convoy, and there was something that happened there. I think they got audited or something like that. There was always this crazy stuff that happened when every time people tried to fund the convoys.
It gets fired. Economy is weak while we trying to beat a virus. $1 trillion in debt to China. We celebrate the smallest battles we're winning. So
he's talking about how Australia, the US, all these companies are in multi-million-dollar debt because they're trying to beat a virus. Australia put $40 billion of national debt onto our national debt, to fight COVID. The US put $4 trillion, I think it was, of national debt. I think he says one here, but I think it was actually $4 trillion. That national debt was to cover things like paying people to stay home, health systems, all this sort of stuff. But you got to ask, who made all the money? Who made all that money from those national debts? Yeah. In Australia, here there was a poke centre. I can't say certain words. Poke centre, and to run it cost $250,000 a week. Who made all the money? Well, the government officials did.
They can publish the headline that's gonna fuel the vision. But if we champion the crumbs, then it's crumbs that we're given. And we don't make any progress, we're stuck at the beginning. 1 cent, 2 cent, 3 cents, 4. We get less and they get more. By insult since we were born. They want money. We want dirty dollars fill their pockets while our coffins fill the ground. They make profits, solving problems they create to keep us down. Dirty money. Dirty money. I don't want your dirty money. Money, 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 money. Not enough soap to scrub, it's soaked in blood. It's all about the money, 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 money. Every time we make a buck, they take from us. It's all about the money, 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 money. The dollar runs our lives until we die. It's all about the money, 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 money. It controls your mind and it controlling mine. Dirty dollars fill their pockets while our coffins fill the ground. They make profits, solving problems they create to keep us down. Dirty money.
It's talking about there, like, for example, you go through at the moment, there's this big bill, the ban TikTok bill, right? The US has created this problem with TikTok and allowing this app to be around. But now that everybody's sufficiently upset about TikTok and all the spying that's going on, what are they doing? Well, now they're bringing in this Patriot Act 2.0, which is actually going to go through, and not only does it ban TikTok, sure, but it also allows you to the government to clamp down on its citizens for doing a lot of other stuff. There's a lot of media. There's a lot of videos out about it. where people are talking about it. I might even cover it here again. But yeah, it's basically it's what they've dubbed the Patriot Act 2.0. Yeah, sure, it bans TikTok, but it also goes through and stops like private residents from using a VPN. What's that got to do with you allowing people to use TikTok or not use TikTok? No. Cool. Special effects are amazing, by the way. Tom, if you ever see this. Guys, as for this, the general consensus of this video is that the government is using money and causing problems to only try and sort the problems out later, because it keeps them in power, it keeps them in control. I love this video, I really do. The saying, the stuff that he's got in there is very factual, it's very true. It's interesting that someone who's independent is able to say this. I don't know how many views this has got. So it's had 166 in 2 hours. What's it got now? 250,000 views in 3 hours. No, you did not go too far, Tom. Someone wrote, no drugs, no swearing, no naked women, just 100% real talent. I'm 71 years old. Tom is the only rapper I listen to. Oh, well, there you go. You pack more truth into 3.5 minute video than the politicians pack in the whole world. Wow. That's pretty true, actually. Don't ever change, Tom. Another one is Spotify. Spot on lyrics. Yeah. So everybody seems to be loving it. You look at the ratio too. 69,000 upvotes, 455 downvotes. That's the 455 government officials. But yeah, obviously, basically, the crust of what he's saying here is that all this stuff that the politicians do, it's not for your best interest. It's generally just there to keep themselves in power, to make them money, while supposedly being there for the benefit of you, but you don't end up benefiting from it. So yeah, good video, Tom. If you ever see this, great video, man. I appreciate it. Guys, obviously let us know what your thoughts are in the comment section below. You liked the video? You didn't like the video? Let me know if there's anything you disagree with. But apart from that, we'll see you in the next demonetized video from YouTube. And also on Rumble too. Have a great night. Enjoy yourself, guys.